Join me as I'm sitting down with Sam Dorvil of Custom Homes Building and Remodeling, so that way we can get all the answers that you should know when looking into your next home improvement project.
The Home Design and Remodeling Show. It's the one.
Wait, hold on. Before we start, hit the subscribe button below. That way you can stay up to date on all the latest tips, trends, information, and inspiration right here in South Florida. Subscribe now and stay up to date. So Sam, thank you so much for having us here. I can't be more excited to be talking about home improvement, remodeling, design, and so much more. But let's start off. What does Custom Home Building and Remodeling really stand for in yourself?
So Custom Homes Building and Remodeling came from just an idea. A little bit background about us is we started as home flippers, and we hired a couple contractors to work on some of our homes, and we had to fire some contractors. So we saw right away that we were never really going to be happy with the speed, the execution that these contractors were performing on our projects. So we started running our own projects, and we got really good at executing on those projects. And part of me didn't want to become a contractor because they had a bad reputation. So that's kind of how we started into the business.
Absolutely. Sometimes, as far as having trouble finding the right contractor, and really that's what everything comes down to. When it comes to home improvement, in every aspect of business, in any category, but one thing that I've learned is knowing who you're hiring and knowing more about, who the person is you're going to be working with. So, tell us a little bit about yourself and, where you start when it comes to meeting clients.
Okay. First off, I'm a new dad.
Nothing better than that. Congratulations.
Better than that. And that's really special to me because you kind of know we know each other, and how long of a process that was for my wife and I to conceive. And I'm also a foster dad. I feel like that's a calling for us to be able to open up our home to provide a safe place for children that don't have that structure. I'm also a native of Fort Lauderdale.
Yeah.
So I've been here a long time, elementary school to high school. So I feel like that gives me a unique perspective, and seeing the architecture and knowing the area really well and knowing how things will look in different places, that's kind of helped me a lot.
Right.
My wife is part of the business, and her grandfather, Bill Johnson, was a builder. And I had the opportunity to meet him, and he was 93.
Wow.
And he took me around to some of the different properties. It was a little scary because he was 93 and
right.
he was driving us. But he shined some light and gave us some insight on why it's important to do certain things in certain properties. So that's kind of helped us a lot.
Absolutely. And I mean, really knowing the market and knowing what is going to happen, essentially when you get into homes and things like that. But you've really focused and you've really hit this niche where, design build, a lot of people don't even really know what design build is in comparison to, regular general contractors. But, tell us what design build is for the people that really don't know what the definition of that is.
So the best way to describe design build is if a contractor had a baby with an architect, that would be design build. Design build incorporates architecture, interior design, consulting, and construction all under one roof. We find that the project moves better in harmony when you use all of those services in one. And it's, instead of hiring a architect separate, right, or hiring a designer and trying to pull those pieces together, all of that stuff is under one roof.
Absolutely. And the thing is, I'm sure there's a lot of cost benefits to that as well. Being able to work with one person that's managing a property or a project efficiently, because what a lot of people may have gone through past projects or afraid to get into is the fact that, budgets are budgets, but at the end of the day, you need someone that's going to manage that, and trying to piece it together isn't always the most effective. But tell us about how the efficiency of design build really, helps the homeowner.
Yeah. So the first part of design build is going through a feasibility study.
Right.
Sometimes people have these large dreams of doing their kitchen, or they're doing their whole house renovation, and they really don't have any idea of what things actually cost.
Right.
And the feasibility study really drills down on costs and really puts together the scope of work, so you have a really detailed idea as to what this vision is going to cost.
Right.
And I think it's a great place to start there before you actually commit to a construction project, which could have project overruns left and right after the fact. It's important that we drill down on all of that information before you get started. And then after that, after we find out and we get that solid budget, we could create and build around that budget. Then your project moves to design, where we figure out space planning. We select all of your materials up front, so we don't have last minute hiccups with certain items being missing and stuff like that. So that's a big issue in construction. And the reason I know that is because I've done it the wrong way.
Right.
So I understand. I've also hired guys the wrong way. So I truly understand what a homeowner is going through as far as the process. We wear a lot of hats in this business, and for us to provide a good experience, we need to do a lot of things right. So we understand what that process needs to look like to provide the best service possible. And then after you've gone through design, now we move your project into architecture.
Right.
We don't leave any gaps. All right. So us moving your project from design to architecture and to construction, we know every detail.
Right.
All right? We know the project in and out, compared to if we just got a set of plans and we had to bid on plans. There's a lot of question marks that pop up.
Because I'm sure you get that a lot. Like, people, they think the first step might be going to the architect, but tell us what you've experienced in that case.
Yeah. So glad that you brought that up. So the dirty little secret is the architect doesn't have any idea about cost.
Right.
So they will draw and they'll give you exactly what you want, and but you won't know the bad news until the end, when the plans are complete.
Right.
That it's probably unaffordable for you to build.
So basically going from the architect into the next process, so once you guys go through the process, you got to the point of drawing up plans. What's the next step when it comes to, the home improvement aspect? What follows the drawing of the plans?
Okay. So after a client draws up plans and we get the plans,
right,
we sit down with the architect, we sit down with the designer, we sit down with project management, and we review all of that information on how we're going to execute on that project. Compared to if we just got a set of plans from an architect, there's all of these question marks. For us, we really like to know the client beforehand.
Yep.
Like, how do they live? Why do you want to accomplish this this build or this renovation? And all of these elements that go into personalizing the space is really important to us. And there's something that's missed naturally when we just get a set of plans, and then it becomes more about how much it's going to cost only.
Yeah, no, absolutely. And the thing is, it's like, that's one of the foundations as far as how to hire the right contractor, because you want to make sure that whoever that individual is or that team is truly working for you as a homeowner. Going through, you guys have a system, you have processes, you've learned from past experiences. When somebody is going to hire that right contractor, what steps would you suggest? Because obviously, settling on the first person that you meet isn't always the answer. But what would you recommend to homeowners who are looking to hire the right pro?
There's several telltale signs, all right, and the details are important. Never accept a vague estimate. There's the assumption that we all do the same thing. Right. So what are you left with comparing? You're comparing price. Yeah. And that's a bad area to compete in. Right. I like to say that we compete in service. How do they communicate? How do they respond to you? Do they have a process? Is it written down? Can you track it? How do you track the information about your project? These are all questions that are really important that I don't think customers really know to ask. So we really run through all of that information. And the biggest, there's a big information gap between the contractor and the homeowner. And I think that's the biggest hang up in the project, because contractors could really hide pricing because we know that the client doesn't know. So the more details, the better.
Absolutely, and I mean, that goes off of exactly, if someone were to go to your website, it is mapped out. Like, there is nothing left out, and they know, people will know what the next step is. But so once it gets to the design process, because the thing is, like, when you hire a contractor, you get into the, the building the dream, essentially. When it comes to managing that budget, it's kind of like sorting out the needs and the wants, or as far as what is truly needed in that project, or what is more realistic. How do you manage budgets when you're sitting down with somebody who's so passionate because it's their own home space? Tell us a little bit about budget management, but while still being able to deliver whether it's finishes or features or different things that somebody finds to be important in that project.
I mean, it really starts up front.
Yeah.
It's a very straightforward approach that we take
Right.
to executing on budget and estimates and stuff like that. And that's why we select the material up front.
Right.
Because there's no way for me to know that you want high-end cabinets or low-end countertops on that particular item. There is good, better, and best in every category. And every category you select will affect the budget. So that's why it's so important, and that's why it's also not accurate sometimes when you get these budgets from contractors, and that's something that's not explained to anybody.
Right. No, absolutely. Because the thing is, it's like there are certain areas that someone can splurge. When you're going through a project, obviously you're interviewing the homeowner to really find out what they want. Are there certain things that you suggest to homeowners to build up before they meet with a contractor, whether that has to do with, we live in an Instagram and Pinterest world. Yes. What are some recommendations that you can give to homeowners to help the process?
Well, first things first, you have to really narrow down the scope of work, right?
Right.
You can have all of these ideas, and you got to find out how far is your budget really going to take you.
You probably see yourself as a psychologist sometimes.
I am actually. I'm actually a marriage coach through my church, and it's funny because it comes into play a lot.
Right.
Because you see these different couples and how a renovation could really ruffle the feathers of some couples. So it's really important. But I really look at contracting as a marriage.
Yep.
And if you're going to be tied into this long-term relationship, you really need to know who this person is and what you're really getting. So I think that's very important.
Without a doubt. And so, when looking at areas to splurge, like, so somebody wants to redo their kitchen, talking about one area in particular. People are a lot of times focused on the bells and the whistles and like the, things that really stand out. But where would you say is the best money to spend when it comes to, remodeling projects, whether it's, tiles or countertops or the cabinetry or whatever that might be?
Some of the finishes that, like a backsplash, is somewhere you want to spend a few more dollars. Also, the finished flooring, they have these nice grade and different grains in wood look tile and stuff like that. Those are areas that people are going to see first. And your light fixtures, those are really big areas to really spend a little bit more money that you'll get a lot more because it's out in the open and people see it all the time.
Without a doubt. And then when looking at, you mentioned it before, specifically talking about that information gap, because the whole process that you've gone through, you know exactly what you're doing. You've lived it, you've gone through it, you've hired, you've mishired, you've perfected your process. As far as the misinformation, because even myself, like when I went through a remodeling process years ago, contractor or construction grade versus the other, whether it's designer or whatever it is. What can you tell homeowners, when it comes to selecting those finishes and knowing, the terminology, like if they're looking at a quote and everything's quoted as construction grade, but yet they haven't even talked about the finishes, to bring this up?
That's why it's important to know. We ask all of our clients to bring inspiration
Right.
photos to the table.
Yeah.
That gives us a really good idea and the direction that we want to head with the project.
Yeah.
And also now how we're going to set up the budget to make sure it reflects some of those items.
Right.
There's certain details that people may overlook. Anytime that you're going to run tile up walls, you know, in a bathroom and stuff like that, that significantly affects price.
So when somebody calls you, they want to improve their kitchen, they want to do a whole gut, they want to remodel their kitchen. What would you say is their initial steps that they should take when looking to, prior to even hiring a contractor, so that way they understand what budget they're looking at?
So I would say style of the home is really important. A lot of times people will make certain style decisions that are different within the same home. You want to make sure that you're keeping it within the same concept.
Right.
And then after that, selecting all of the materials. I think that's where there's a disconnect from the clients. Clients should know, you know, what type of cabinets they want. They should know and visit what type of countertops they're looking for. Look at the backsplash, find out what that's going to cost. Find out a list of all of the items that's going to require to execute on your job before you run out and hire a contractor and find out later. I think that's a terrible way to find out what things cost, is after the fact. So I think they should really focus on just trying to get a better idea of what it's going to cost to really execute on their vision.
Absolutely, because a lot of times, I'm sure you get it, where people have no idea what their budget is, or they might have an idea, but they don't know what it should be based on the finishes and the things that they really want in their home.
Yeah, and sometimes what happens is a homeowner will have a certain budget, and they'll like, okay, I want to cram everything I got into this budget,
Right.
and the reality is it just doesn't work.
Exactly.
So sometimes it might not be, you know, it might shatter your dreams a little bit,
Right.
but you know, you might have to parcel out some of the project, you know, to get exactly what you want.
When we're talking about design build and typical general contractors, pros and cons, what can you give us?
The best comparison I would say is one is more of a transaction based,
Okay.
and then one is a relationship based. So with a traditional general contractor, it might be more based on price than the details and the information that goes into that specific project when it comes to the client.
Okay.
When it comes to design build, we're more worried about executing on a vision and making sure that all the steps that we take goes towards that vision. And I truly feel like design build is a better model compared to just, you know, hiring a general contractor.
Absolutely, because the thing is, a lot of people, they go out and they look, they search the internet, and a lot of them just come across general contractors versus specifically knowing to look for design build. And the process is everything, and you've clearly perfected that, so I thank you for that.
Thank you.
So Sam, when looking at design build specifically, what are the true benefits for a homeowner when they hire a design build contractor?
So the number one thing is that the buck stops with me, and there's only one person to blame if something happens, you know, on your project, and there's one person to go to. Compared to that example I gave you about the homeowner and the architect and having to go to the architect to do the revisions and stuff like that, we're a one-stop shop when it comes to that information. So some of the benefits are planning, you know, planning around the budget, planning around that specific cost is something that's going to be really important. And then also the planning through the permit phase. We get to really walk that permit in and catch all the details of the plan. And the reason that's important is because the main hang-up in a lot of construction projects are changes after the fact and changes within a project. Those could add significant amount of time, and then the more time that you add to a project, the more it's going to cost you.
Right.
And the reason why design build is a better model is because we do that planning up front to get those details so we could avoid things like that, like the revisions and the corrections and stuff like that, compared to if you hired an architect beforehand, that could be significantly different. All right.
So Sam, when you look at the whole construction process, what can you say about how important communication is between the contractor and also the homeowner?
I mean, communication is everything. Like I mentioned before, being in a contractor relationship is a marriage. And we want to make sure that we're always communicating what the next step is, what's the step currently, what's the step next week, and then what's the step, after that. And the biggest issue that most clients have is not getting that clear communication from the contractor. So we use a system called Builder Trend that we've incorporated into all of our projects. We literally have weekly, daily information updates, so you're not wondering, hey, where is that contractor with that item? So if you ordered those cabinets and those cabinets came in, we send a message into Builder Trend that your cabinets came in, so you really are truly informed, and we make sure that we communicate every step of the way with you.
That's amazing, because the thing is, like, there's always a void in remodeling and construction, not knowing when the next step's going to happen. So the fact that you guys go the extra step, that's beyond impressive.
Yeah, because most clients think that a contractor just gets people to the job, and then that's what he does, and his job is over. Really, there's a lot of things that are happening in the back scene that people are not seeing, and just plugging those missing items makes clients more comfortable.
Yeah, it's all comfort, because like you said, it's like a marriage. You have other people in your most private space. It's your home. It's everything. It's people's biggest investment. So having that contractor, not only the one that you can trust, but the one that is communicating, is the most important factor.
Absolutely, I agree with that.
So obviously, you've done a lot of different projects. You've done all different types of remodeling, building. Is there a certain type of project that you really enjoy working on, or certain types of remodeling projects that you've found that you've liked to focus on, or are you really going through the whole remodeling aspect in regards to the type of clients that would benefit most from working with you and your team?
So what we enjoy the most is the end process, right? When we do the final reveal, it's almost kind of like TV, but not really. Because it's such a long process to get there.
Yep.
But seeing a homeowner's face that really gets to enjoy their space and really gets to get their home back, which is important to them.
Absolutely.
And also just communicating that process, coaching them through.
Yeah.
I feel like when someone hires me, they hire me to get them to the goal line and score and finish. So service is really important in our business, and
Right.
And it will continue to be important, for that reason.
Yeah, and ultimately delivering what the homeowner wants. But over all the projects you've done over the years, whether it's the most challenging or one of the most rewarding, is there a project that stands out to you most throughout the number of projects you guys have completed?
There was a project that stood out to me the most, is because all projects come with challenges.
Right.
It was a project I did in Lighthouse Point.
Okay.
The product came out beautiful. The finishes, we were dealt some different challenges, part of the plan. Partly because the architect that came with that particular renovation was not connected to us.
Right.
And that creates an issue, because if there is a revision that needs to happen with the city, now since I didn't hire that architect, I have to send the homeowner to change that information and make sure that information is relayed to them. So it was a challenge, but the finishes came out amazing. And definitely one of my favorite projects because of the end result. But I wasn't laughing during the process. But
it's one of those things, like homeowner as well as yourself. Everyone's happy at the end.
Exactly.
Got the product, even though there's challenges. Because the thing is, in construction, nothing can ever go perfect. It's impossible. And that brings me to talking about experience, because you've seen it, you've gone through it. No one knows what's behind walls. But talking about expectations that homeowners might have going into the process, but more so reality. I mean, you mentioned reality television, HGTV, DIY, all these great networks, such an incredible source for inspiration and, showing people different trends and styles. But, when you sit down with somebody and they're like, oh, I saw, Flip or Flop or whatever the show was,
Yeah.
how do you kind of bring them back to reality to let them know, what the process really looks like in the sense of the realistic approach?
Okay, so partly in our interview process, we ask clients what shows do they watch and information like that. So when we go through our checklist and we've asked them, have they renovated before? Have they not? We get a sense of what their experience was like prior. And then I run through the expectations of what to expect, with us. Like for example, nothing in construction is done on the first coat. Right. Construction is a process of 6, 7, or 8 steps within, the construction process to get to finish. Now, sometimes a homeowner doesn't know that, and you might do one step and they might say, I hope it's not gonna stay that way, and get nervous or get scared. But I walk them through in the beginning, hey, listen, this is only step 1 of 7, so they kind of know what to expect walking in. So we really do a good job of checking all the boxes and making sure that they know exactly what to expect, and also delivering on what we say we're going to do, which is a very important part of the process.
And that stands out more than anything in the sense of we've discussed so much today. Is there anything that you wanted to add or make sure that you're leaving all of us with?
And make sure you do your homework. The great thing is I'm an open book. If I can help you, I'll help you. If I can't, I can't. And it's worth having a conversation. That's fine. If I can't help you, I'll just tell you, because at the end of the day, I feel like it's about service, and it's about helping each other out. And even if it's just information that you need, I have no problem with helping you out.
Absolutely. And the thing is, so if somebody wants to get a consultation from you guys and bring you and your team into their home, what's the best way for people to reach you? All
right. So you can find me on Facebook. Custom Homes Building and Remodeling. It's Instagram, Custom Homes FL. You could also find me on LinkedIn. I'm very easy to find, and I make it that way for a reason, compared to
Absolutely. And your website?
And my website, customhomesfla.com. There's a wealth of information in there. There's tons of blogs. I made sure that I incorporated a ton of blogs of useful information for homeowners, that anytime you're doing a renovation or have different questions, frequently asked questions, you should be able to find all of that information in the blogs.
Yeah, and I can't thank you enough for having me here and obviously discussing everything when it comes to home improvement and design. One thing that I have noticed from the start, you are beyond transparent. You show people the process, you give them tips. You're just a wealth of information. So I thank you for that, for the industry, and obviously anyone looking to take that next step to home improvement and design, obviously to reach out to you and your team. But until next time, I want to thank everybody always tuning in and watching the top segments on the best tips, tricks, information, and inspiration for all the top South Florida professionals in the home improvement and design industry. But until next time, I want to thank Sam, and thank you for having us here.
Thank you. Thank you for having me. Appreciate it.
Absolutely.
Thanks.
Sam, thank you so much for all the incredible information that you gave us all today. As I know, South Florida is more prepared and more comfortable for their first steps and next steps for better home living and home lifestyle. Until next time, you can always tune in on all of our social media at FL Home Shows. Make sure you subscribe now, comment below, so that way Sam and his team can get back to you. But until next time, you can always tune in to receive the top tips, trends, information, and inspiration right here in South Florida. Thanks again for watching, and tune in next time.